Hey everybody, welcome back. I got an update on my train network. Forgive the weird audio quality. Apparently it makes, it just sounds weird at first. It goes back to normal after a little while. I normally don't record on PC, and I don't know, it's a little wacky. But yeah, check it out. This is my train depot. I've been working on this for a while. It's many revisions in. I've made lots of corrections and fixes. It seems pretty damn stable now. I've got hundreds of hours played on it, and it's working exactly as it should right now. So basically, these signals, they come from all the other stations. I guess I'll go show some of those right now first, because they're simpler. So these are the requester and supply stations. This is a supply station right here for coal, because I have a little patch right here. So it's very simple. It's a little simpler compared to HTN and some of the other ones. Basically, I just get a count. It goes over here. There's also a constant combinator to say the load size. You need to adjust this depending on the stack sizes, how many chests. I recommend just coming up with a couple of presets depending on your preference and just making a blueprint of it. And then just, drop the ones that you don't apply. Like this 4K is for two cars of these 50 stacks. If it was 100 stacks, you'd put 8K. So just put multiple in here and drop one. Anyway, that'll be in the blueprint later. But yeah, it's relatively simple. You'll just basically drop whichever ones don't apply. It'll be in the blueprint. And you set this combinator right here to the supply signal. And then you change the name. And that's all you got to do on the supply side. Oh, and then you got to run the wire. You got to run a red wire for supply. Red is supply. So it gets onto the network. The network will always show all the things that are indicating that they have supply available. And over here is a requester station. This is requesting uranium ore. So all you got to do is change the uranium ore right here. You got to change the name. And you have to adjust this. This is how much it wants to have at a minimum. If it has less than this, it'll make a request. So right now you can see it has less, and so it is sending an output signal to request more. And you can adjust this the same way, like 31 or 3400 is one load short of being totally packed for 4 chests, I think, or for 8 chests for 100 stacks. But this is 50, so I'm doing half that. I'm going to put a couple of presets in here too, and just drop the ones that don't apply based on the stack sizes and number of chests. And I recommend just customizing your own blueprints based on your own preferences. Like if you want to have more chests, you want to have more stops. I mean, not stops, more rail cars. Just go in, make some adjustments, blueprint it, and save your own copy. But I'll come up with a good template. That'll be pretty handy. Okay, this stupid train ran up the wrong track. I wonder, it must have been full earlier, I guess. I might have built too many of these. Let me back this up a little. Let's see, it's full right now, so I'm going to send it in for a demand run. Okay, I have just recently expanded the number of trains, and I think I don't have enough stops now. So here's the meat of the whole network, the smart depots. These are pretty, they got a lot of functionality built into here. But basically what's going on here is there's a group of circuits right here that keep track of the total supply that needs to be addressed. It goes into this memory value right here. And these are the supply orders that have not been, taken care of. Right now, they actually match. So all of the trains that can fill up have apparently already filled up because no one's running out on a supply run. I just got a new supply order for coal. There's my coal car. What's it up to? It's full, so it's going to ignore that order too. Oh, here's another order what just came in. Iron, probably iron. Here comes an iron train, and it looks like it's half empty, so it should respond to this iron request after a 2-second delay. And there it goes. It took the order. It canceled the pending supply order. Now you can see the network was still indicating iron for a second there, but it left out of here because it only send one train per request.
And so these don't always necessarily match, because these are the untaken care of orders, and these are the current orders. But some of them could already be taken care of, so this will sometimes be lower. And on the demand side, it's the same scenario. These are the demand side circuits to keep track of the total count of orders. I mean, for demand orders. Something just left. That was probably that was a coal train, I think. So it just left out because it got a demand for coal. It issued a train. The demand went down, and it ran over here somewhere. I don't have a radar over there. Anywho, so let's talk more about this smart depot. So there's a supply side memory value here, and these are basically increment or decrement it. I'll get into why those work later. And then there's a handful of combinators that basically combine the orders with a pulse that goes out to the trains. And it's a color-coded pulse, red for supply, green for demand. And there's a couple of combinators in here to basically add the color onto the pulse through some of these circuits right here. Basically, this one makes it 1. This one gets the count. Gets basically which commodity we're iterating over, and then it merges it onto the line over here and sends it out to the trains. I'll get into that in a second. This is a counter that basically iterates through every commodity that you want to deliver and sends out a count which basically gives each commodity a turn to the trains. Because see, the way this works is we basically send signals to the trains one at a time that says, I have a request for this, or I have a demand for that, and along with a commodity and a color that indicates whether it's a supply or demand. And if the train leaves, this circuit over here basically detects that the train has left, and depending on why the train has left, we'll know what has been taken care of. So that signal goes out over the red, and that comes down here. It shifts it up. It sends it as either a supply or demand signal on either the red or the green or the red, and it goes onto the network. The reason it goes back onto the network when it could just skip over here is because I wanted to make this compatible with multiple depots. So I have a whole other depot over here. It keeps track of its own counts, its own demands, its own supply and demand, and it will listen to the decrement signals from this station. They'll come in to this as well. Both of them will listen to each other's signals and the signals from the network. And basically, whenever they get a signal that says it's in a high word like this, it basically means cancel an order, cancel one of these existing orders. So it'll come in off from the network, and the entry point for demand is right here for cancels, and it goes up this chain right here. It detects if it's losing a value, and it adds the negative into here to cancel the order. And this is the negator for the supply side. This is the incrementer for the supply and incrementer for the demand. So basically these are mirrored little cells here. A negator, an incrementer, a memory cell for supplies and demands. And there's also, just like on this one where there's a couple extra combinators to combine it with the color and put it out to the trains. That's what these do. And there's a couple other pieces that are important. This is a offset that basically offsets the count for the demand side so that they aren't firing both the supply and demand at the same time to the trains, because if it did that, I wouldn't know which signal the trains were leaving in response to. So it sends them at an offset, and also all of the commodities that it sends signals for, it sends them on even ticks for supply, and this will basically make it send for odd ticks on demand. And the reason why also I have it split like this is because I need a clear on signal, like the signal is on, and then the signal is off, because I need to detect the signal going off along with the train signal going off. That's how I know that the signal that the train is leaving in response to is, a signal I need to actually keep track of. So one of the setup things you'll have to do for these smart depots is if you have any commodities that aren't already included in these two combinators, you'll want to add it. And you know what? I just realized I made a mistake because I added oil over here and I forgot to add it to the second one. So I better do that actually. So potentially I could have gotten a synchronization issue if this oil train had left in response. Let me just check that I have it. Let me just double check this. So I removed this 28 signal because it was something I wasn't going to use, and I added it over here. I added it in a separate one to make sure it didn't send the wrong value for this oil temporarily, because when you first add it, if it's already on, it'll send it at the wrong value and it'll respond at the wrong time, cause a lot of problems. So just keep that in mind. You might want to, if you want to replace one of these, you might want to turn it off, replace it, and turn it back on. This is still a work in progress. I haven't released the blueprints yet, so I'll go into more detail on some of the setup steps later. I'm just kind of explaining how it works and the thought process and how it's working so far. It does seem to be working really well at the moment. Let me just check this. So I got oil demand, and over here it's got oil demand too. So it didn't get out of sync, but it could have if it had left. Well, actually, it wouldn't even have been signaled from the wrong station. This is empty, so it's waiting on a supply run anyway. Anyway, so yeah, so far they've actually stayed in sync perfectly well, surprisingly well. The only thing that you need to worry about for making sure they stay in sync is that the counter isn't on the exact same tick, which is going to be pretty unlikely. Actually, they need to be within, like, they can't be within like 3 or 5 or I forget how many. It depends on how many circuits are in between. I mean, how many combinators are in between, like here, 1, 2, 3. I don't know. They shouldn't be within about 4 of each other, but it's still pretty unlikely because this thing ticks 80, so the odds are pretty slim. You should be able to freely add them, and they shouldn't conflict with each other. But then even if they do overlap, basically different trains in 2 different stations will need to respond to the same signal at the same time. So you'll actually need trains to be in 2 different stations for the same commodity and the tick to be on the same tick, the counter to be on the same tick for it to conflict. But that shouldn't happen. Just by random chance, they should be spread out enough depending on how many you have. If you have like 50 depots, then 50 depot computers, yeah, then you're probably going to run into a conflict. But I haven't gotten there. I'm going to release this soon for testing, but I just wanted to try and ferret out most of the issues before I put it out, because it's going to be really hard if something goes wrong for someone to kind of explain to me what they're seeing and for me to debug it. I guess they'll have to send me a map. Anyway, work in progress. But yeah, so that's the computer end, and then it sends the signals out to the trains one at a time. This basically gets a signal, it sends it into this, and 1 tick later it gets negated. And 1 tick later, the positive signal is gone, and then the negative signal is the only thing that will be flowing over here. This will detect for only negative signals. And if it detects a train signal, then that means the train has left. And if it detects a train signal, that means the train has left. It sends it on the red wire. It goes to the cancel order. If it doesn't detect a train, or the train hasn't changed, it'll still be 0. It'll send to the next train. So basically it goes 1 train at a time. It checks the orders, it sees if it should leave. If it doesn't leave, it sends it to the next train or the next stall, whether there's a train or not. So you can see the signal kind of ripple down the line. That's how I can make sure that more than 1 train doesn't ever leave at a time. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but one of the design goals of this smart depot system is to never release extra trains than the current needs, than I currently need. I don't want any extra trains flowing out onto the network, flowing around, getting stopped up in the roadways, blocking up the roads trying to get to a station. So at no point with this system should extra trains be trying to go to a station, especially on the heart of your network. They could potentially both go to the same, if there was 2 supply stations and 2 trains left, maybe the default routing would send them both the same way, and then they'd be waiting way out here. That's not as bad though as them waiting inside the middle of the factory, blocking the main arteries of my network. But yeah, with this system, it shouldn't have any need for stackers anywhere, except for in the depot. You just stack them up here in the depot. Shit, I really need to add an extra stall here. So I'm just going to do that right now, actually. Let me just copy this and move it over here. So I've been slowly replacing all of my trains from the old system that I was using to the new one, but they're not all done. I think there's still one more. Okay. Well, I think I actually have enough stalls for each train now, so as long as they don't try to all cram into the same depot, they should be good. Yeah, so that's the system. So far, so good. I've definitely found a handful of issues, and I've had to debug it and fix it. I think I've got them all by now, though. I mean, it really seems pretty stable. I haven't seen any desynchronization with the signals. I haven't seen any missed signals. I haven't seen any train issues for 2 or 3 hours of testing. It's working really well. I've been scaling it up. I've been adding more trains. I've been adding extra trains. And it's been working perfectly. So I'll probably release the blueprint soon, and I'll try to write up a document explaining exactly the pros and cons and the setup steps and all that sort of stuff pretty soon. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Have a good one. Later.